Okay, continuing now in the theater of the mind, which is schedule management. So we are working the schedule network analysis, which is my schedule network diagram, the relationship, but now I put times into them. And I'm doing it by the critical path method, which will be on any exam. The box on the left is how these are all drawn on the exam, and I think in the PMBOK guide. We have an early start in the top left, early finish in the top right, and my duration for that activity along the top. I put my activity name in the middle, and it can be as simple as A, B, C, D, E, F, G. My late start for that activity in the bottom left, and my late finish on the bottom right. My total float is determined by subtracting late start minus early start, or late finish minus early finish. And you see that recorded in the middle of the slide. To determine the float, I take late start minus early start, or late finish minus early finish. It does not matter which one. They both give you the same answer. So let's take a look on the right, that example. I start with activity A, which is broken down from my work package, okay, and which has one boss, just to bring some old items forward. And I have activity A now, and it starts on day 1 and ends on day 9. Now, do I have to start on day 1? No, the PMBOK guide says day 1, day 0, it doesn't matter, you get the same answer. If I start on day 1, look at the far right, activity I. I end on day 64. That's the longest path in the network, which is the shortest time I can do the project. 63 days. If I started on day 0 in A, I would have had 63 in I. Okay? But it doesn't matter. It gives you the same float, which helps you define your critical path. That's what we want. So I'll start with activity A. Starts on day 1. It's an 8-day duration along the top. So I'll end early finish on day 9. Now B and C can both begin then, because you see the dependency arrows, right, which we already determined dependencies and relationships. So B and C can both begin on day 9, but B has a duration of 12 days and C has a duration of 16 days. And it goes on and on like that. Notice C actually breaks into 2 other points, E and F. So C has an early finish of day 25, which means E and F can both begin early start on day 25. But look at D. D actually goes into 2 points, G and H. So G and H must both wait until D is done. D ends at an early finish of day 35. So the early start, ES for G and H, can't be until day 35. Okay? So, day 30, all right, no, D is day 30, G is day 35, but notice D goes into H, but so does E. H must actually wait for both D and E to finish. D has an early finish of day 35. E has an early finish of day 38, so I must wait for both. So H can't start until day 38. And that's how that works. Okay. We talked about float there. Critical path, just as a review. Remember, we're looking for, it's the longest path in the network, hence the shortest time I can do a project. It usually has 0 float. It may actually have negative or 0. Man, as a project manager, especially on the certification exam, you would want to fix that. Do something about it. But that's how that happens. Okay? If I add 1 day to any activity on the critical path, I'm going to add a day to the end of my project. Period, because there's no float. Notice the critical path has 0 float, so I'm looking at the bottom, activity A has 0, C, E, H, and I. That's my critical path. Okay, so now let's look at it. We call it a node, which is the box, and dependency arrows. Okay? And I just walked through the math there. and I get to day 64 at the end, in my early finish, how do I figure out my late finish? I just drop it down. This is called the forward pass. So see on the right I have forward pass written. This is the forward pass, like throwing a football over top of the line of scrimmage. That is how I figure out the numbers on the top. So what do you think going back is called? It's called the backward pass, of course. And so the duration here, since I started on day 1, on the left in node A and end on day 64, I have a 63-day duration. Okay? And we just went through the math on how we got there. Now, the backward pass then looks like this. Okay? As the times fill in slowly. We'll give it a minute. This is the backward pass. Once I've done my backward pass, now I'm able to actually determine my total float because I've got my late start and early start, or my late finish and early finish times. So in the backward pass, I drop on activity I, the early finish was 64, so I drop it down. That becomes my late finish, or LF. I subtract 12, which is my duration, and my late start for that activity. The latest I can start that activity is day 52. Now you see I feeds into G, H, and F going backwards. So those all take the late start of I, and they become the late finishes for each activity. Okay? All right. And that's all there is to that.